started with the home study, and
that was a lot of work.
a lot of work, a lot of paperwork. Everything's a lot of paperwork.
A lot of paperwork. They look through everything in your life. They're asking questions. They're looking at everything. They're picking apart all the decisions you made. They ask why you did this. And it's not a bad thing. They just want to know who you are, what kind of person you are. And at the same time, they help us understand what we're walking into. In terms of the house, in terms of parenting, in terms of the kid's perspective towards us. It was really good. Just a lot of stuff, and we crammed it into like 5 weeks.
5 weeks. So normally a home study takes about 2 to 3 months, if not longer. And we wanted to rush it. Our social worker was super awesome in doing that. I think the minimum she could do was like 4 weeks. Anyways, we finished in 5, and meanwhile, we had asked our agency, like, what can we do? What is the next step? Because I want to be prepared for the next step. So we actually wrote a letter, and we're working with our agency on that to kind of like an intent to adopt, and photos of our life to send to them. So we got home study approved July 2nd. All of our paperwork, home study, letter, photos were in Taiwan July 3rd, which is 1 year later. We land in Taiwan July 3rd. So we thought that was really cool that our paperwork landed here a year ago and we landed here the same day. So that was kind of a cool. Taiwan's process is, for us, you got, submitted for a trial, you get matched, you do your dossier, you do your court, and then you travel for court, and then you travel to pick up your child. That was not necessarily the case for us. So we submitted everything, and then we had to wait 10 long weeks. September 11th, we were getting fingerprinted.
That was a funny experience. So I'm trying to get my fingerprint done, and this lady is trying to do, rolling back and forth. Well, she was trying to roll my finger, and she was keeping my real saber at the same time. So Charlie was fine, but she was like, finger here. It was weird.
So
there was a comment card too, so I put shock.
So we were driving home, and right before the exit, because we live, about 25-30 minutes from the main town, and we were almost off the freeway, and I get a phone call from a Colorado number, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is our agency. And we knew that the match day had already happened, and it was just any point now. So it was like either this was the phone call to like celebrate or like be sad. So we answered the phone, and I pulled over, and it was all our 3 ladies at our agency, and they were like, congratulations, and it was like instant tears. So
it was nice because we don't know how many other families are on the same table. They don't tell you.
Yeah.
So you submit, and you're literally
hoping that you're
the
only one.
So they picked us, so we were really thankful and excited for that, because that means he's ours, and we can really continue the process to bring him home.
So a week later, we got started with our dossier paperwork, and that took about 2 months just because of the types of papers and the notarizations and all the junk you need for that. Taiwan received our information November 25th, and then it was supposed to be 2 to 4 weeks later. It was actually like 12. We heard about court, and it was right before COVID had started. We found out that they wanted to record our Skype call to see the interaction between the 3 of us and our son. And so we had Skypes from October in every single month. So February's Skype was recorded and sent to the judge, and at the end of February, the judge had determined we don't need to show up for court. So court was scheduled for April 13th here in Taiwan, and we didn't have to go. So we were excited about financially not having to pay for 2 trips.
It was a lot of money, so it was nice to be able to save that money. So we were really excited.
So that happened, and then 2 weeks later, everything shut down because of COVID.
Yeah.
I started working from home and Brian still got to go to work, everything was closed. And so the day that our school shut down, Taiwan had closed its borders.
Yeah, they were trying to act aggressively towards COVID. They were extremely worried about it, so they closed everything. And that means all the planes going in. So we were just kind of sitting patiently and trying to find out what happened. Then he was able to find out more information by pushing, trying to like get them questions answered on the likelihood of traveling, blah, blah, blah.
So court went well, court happened, we heard that it went well. And then there was a few families who were really pushing for Taiwan to allow us a special permit to come into the country. And so we totally respect Taiwan's process in shutting everything down because it just makes most sense for protecting its people.
Yes.
However, we wanted our son. So I, at that point, was like, we will do whatever we need to do. And we had a Skype with our social worker. And we were like, we will do whatever we need to do. She goes, we're working on it. And so that gave us a little bit of hope in March. I think that was March. In May, the end of May, we got some rules about traveling. So you have to 14-day quarantine in a hotel, isolated room. You have to do a 7-day health management. You need to get a special visa permit to even enter into the country. And then when you get home, you have to quarantine for another 2 weeks. Fine. At that point, we were like, that sucks, but whatever. We're going to do it to bring our son home. So,
meet halfway, make sure we have the right date. And how would complicated.
So we picked a date. We told them. They came back and said, no, 2 weeks later. So we had to reschedule everything. It was for us, we kind of felt like there was a fire under our butt just because our son had just experienced a lot of changes within foster families. And so he was struggling and we need him home. We need him with us. So if this means that we have to do 21-day quarantine stuff, fine, we'll do it. So we booked everything, got everything booked, and then the flight got canceled just because there's not enough people to book these flights. So we worked with an agency to get our flights rebooked, and it cost a lot more money. Like, I'm not even gonna go into that story, but all of a sudden our one trip like tripled the cost just because of everything going on. So we fought to get our special entry visa. They did not, I fought that tooth and nail, and they finally sent it back.
And so it was kind of funny. We were like,
one thing I want to kind of touch on is our timelines. So in terms of my Brian and I's timeline, and then our son's timeline here in Taiwan. So back in 2016, when I had that first God calling, our son was placed into foster care. And so I just think, like, I knew when I had that calling that whenever I needed to write this information down, because I knew that our son, or at that time our child, would have somehow lined up with some of these dates. So and then when Brian came home there and said, hey, I think it'd be cool to adopt a deaf child, within a month of that, the birth family decided to make an adoption plan for their son. And like, that's crazy in itself. When we started, his paperwork started. When we found him in May, his profile had just gone live 2 weeks prior to us finding him. And so it was just kind of like, all of these things aligned so well. It was like, when we found out some of these things, we were like, oh, well, yeah, he's ours. We also found out after the fact, a few months ago actually, that the birth family actually picked us. So that was really cool to know, like, they picked us. When we found our itinerary for our adoption week, we actually get to meet them. And so there was a lot of feelings in the beginning, Rightfully so. It's uncomfortable, but it's just awkward. Like, I'm just gonna leave it at that. If you've adopted before and had interactions with birth family or even that subject, it's just weird. We're thinking in our son's best interest just because...
We're gonna try to approach it and thinking what would Bennett like to know when he's a teenager.
Yeah.
So that way we can help Bennett in the future.
Yeah.
This will help us now, but it's gonna really benefit him in the future. So we're gonna try to document everything, put it away, and then show him when he's older, when he starts asking questions. So hopefully we have some good answers.
Mm-hmm. So I was listening, throughout this whole time I've been listening to podcasts, reading a million books. I mean, it's like, oh, a new book is out, boom, buy. Like, we want to know as much as we possibly can. Our social worker throughout the whole thing has sent us like little clips and videos and training, and so we've been watching that as well. But somebody explained it really nice. It's like you and your spouse are getting married with your child, right? You both come to the altar and you both have sides of your family sitting there. We are entering this adoption as a union of these two families. We can't just pick up our son and be like, oh, goodbye, everyone that you're connected to. That's not what you do. Like, when I married him, I gained all of his family. When he married me, he gained all of my family. So it's not like, how can we say we love our son, but we don't love the people who chose to give him life and chose to make an adoption plan? So it's very complicated. There's a lot more to it. For privacy reasons, we're just going to leave it at that. But we are kind of excited, super nervous, a lot of feelings about meeting birth family. But at the end of the day, it's what's best for our son. Whether he uses it now, whether he uses it in 10 years, whether it comes back and he wants it in 30 years, we will have that information for him. So yeah, we're just one big family, and some family lives in Taiwan. So that's just how we're gonna approach it.